Welcome back to Breaking Bet. Week 3 coming up here. This little preview on Wednesday, September 18th. It's already time to put to bed the first 2 weeks of the season. And, I always get into this thing of like how fast time moves. When the NFL season starts, we wait so long for it to get here. And then once it starts, it goes like that. Blink of an eye. Well, after Sunday, we're going to be past 3 weeks and heading into, the first 25% of the season being over. To help me do it, I got my guy every Wednesday as usual, Eric Pauly in. What's good, EP? How you doing, brother?
It's poppin', Johnny. Nice to be here. Had to miss the slate. Had a bachelor party, so I didn't get to watch any football really on Sunday. And it's week 2, so obviously I want to be sitting on the couch all week. But I have no plans for the rest of the season. I'm excited to be locked in, like you said, because this thing's gonna fly by.
Before we get into week 3, we have to touch real quick on week 2. An absolute slaughterhouse. The books cleaned up. The public got destroyed. Every season, there's 1, 2, or 3 weeks where the books just dismantle you. The public just gets taken out behind the woodshed. And, a couple weeks, there's the opposite, where the public just cleans up and the books get killed. Did you get hit too bad this past weekend?
No, not too bad. A couple of units, nothing crazy. I had a light weekend because I was away, knew I wasn't sweating, so I bet 3 or 4 games. I think I went 1-1 on straights, bet a couple of parlays just for some fun. But no, not a week that I'm crying about, especially considering the landscape. What about you?
I'm crying. I lost both of my Circus Survivor entries. Let me vent for a minute, please, because when I looked at the slate, so I had 2 entries. When I looked at the slate coming throughout the entire week, as I do my process, I looked in a lot of different directions. I came to the 49ers because even though I got PTSD from that spot last year where they traveled to Minnesota on the Monday night, I'm like, that's a different scenario. Kirk Cousins was the quarterback. Jordan Addison was playing. Now you're downgrading to Sam Darnold. The 49ers are a lot healthier for this game than they were last year. All they were missing is McCaffrey. But Jordan Mason had a decent game this one, but he crushed the Jets, supposedly the best run defense, best defense front to back period in football. And it didn't make a difference. The 49ers were sluggish. They got outplayed. They got outcoached. They made pivotal mistakes. To be honest, Fred Warner was the only reason why the 49ers were even in a position to win the game. And despite all the mistakes, at the end of the game, San Francisco was in a position to get the ball back, down 6 points, and go march down the field for a game-winning drive. They had 3 separate third downs that they couldn't get off the field for. They let Minnesota and Sam Darnold pick up the chains 3 times, ultimately pushing a field goal to a 9-point game. It's over. Baltimore, meanwhile, which, listen, a lot of times something is the right look. It just doesn't happen for you. Baltimore on extra rest at home after losing to Kansas City against the Raiders traveling east with a matchup advantage. They're up 10 points in the 4th quarter, and they blow it. Now, obviously, Eric, there was a lot of bad refereeing. Baltimore got hosed. They had 11 penalties. The Devontae Adams penalty that led to the touchdown, the ultimate go-ahead touchdown, was very questionable because there was a lot of hand fighting. Adams looked like he was grabbing him. There was a face mask called. I forget, it might have been against Matabuke on Gardner Minshew, but on the replay, it wasn't a face mask. It was just maybe the vantage point. And Baltimore ends up imploding. Justin Tucker has really come down from being that elite kicker we knew. He can't hit a 50-yarder anymore. That missed field goal early in the game ended up being the difference. And, listen, I pondered taking Philadelphia. I didn't love the matchup. I felt like Philly was better later in the season because there was better matchups. Houston was a team that I thought should have won that game, but I felt like Chicago Sunday night, that was going to be a tough matchup, and it ultimately ended up being very close. And the Chargers, listen, I'll wear that one because I overthought that game. I said, listen, LA, who I don't think is that good of a team, who honestly had a dogfight against Vegas the week before, traveling east to Carolina, who just got their ass beat. Those are the kind of things last year when I made a deep run that I was aware of, that I was very cautious about getting into. Teams like the Steelers, even against the Broncos, I wasn't interested. I wasn't really feeling taking the Jets on a short week. Tampa Bay obviously was a big favorite at Detroit. Washington, that was a toss-up game. You know what I mean? So the Ravens game honestly hurts more than San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I like I've mentioned here, I play in low stakes survivors, so I feel like, and I had the buyback option, so I went with the Steelers this week after going with Vikings in week 1. So I didn't have to go through these trials and tribulations that you went through, but what I saw when watching the games back, because I did miss them in real time, I definitely noticed. Outside of obviously what happened, all the dogs that were big dogs were winning outright, not just covering spreads, but winning. The fact that you look at the circuit pool, they almost matched the couple of years back, the absolute destruction of the contest just 2 weeks into the season, about 73% of people are already eliminated. That's why picking winners in this game is not easy, and is also not for the faint of heart to be playing contests and betting on the sport week to week.
Yeah, I mean, it just hurts. I'm like, 2 entries, you lose them both in week 2. 49ers, fine. Listen, you lose one, that it is what it is. I made it to the top 10 last year just with 1 entry. So, I could do it again. But, the Baltimore thing is just, it was disgusting. I couldn't believe they lost that game. And I was really, really hurt because I felt like I did as good of a handicap as I can. And even that game, I was like, well, last year, Gardner Minshew led the Colts into a hurricane slop fest in Baltimore as an 8.5-point underdog, and they won outright. But I'm like, again, different situation, different team, different circumstances. It really just pissed me off because I felt like I was set up really nicely for at least the next, I would say, 3 to 5 weeks with good teams and good spots to take. And, unfortunately, myself, along with 2,400 people, got clipped on Baltimore. So, listen, I'm interested in joining a different survivor pool. Obviously not as high stakes, but, it's something that needs to take into account the rest of the way.
For sure.
All right, let's get into week 3. Eric, kick me off with your favorite looks for the new week.
My favorite bet is coincidentally going to be the last game of the week. Bengals Commanders over 46.5. This opened 47, got bet up to 48.5, got bet down today back to the 47, 46.5 range, and I'm buying the over 46.5 for the Bengals Commanders.
Wow. Okay. All right then. So we got Cincinnati and the Commanders Monday night. I would say my favorite matchup is going to be Detroit and Arizona. 3-point spread. Detroit coming off an absolutely brutal effort from Tampa Bay. Cardinals coming off a fresh ass kicking of the LA Rams. Dan Campbell and Detroit off a loss. Perfect 8-0 straight up against the spread in his time. I think this is a spot where Detroit gets right. I think this is a wake-up call, that Tampa Bay team. I'm not surprised they went in there and won because I remember we were talking about this last week. The deciding factor of me going with the Lions was strictly because how good they are at home, straight up and against the spread. But Tampa Bay, after last year's playoff performance where they lost by 8, but that was a close game. They have a lot of punch, this Tampa team. And that's why ultimately I picked them to win the NFC South, is because I felt like this is the kind of team that can go anywhere and really make life difficult for a team that might even be better than them. So I think this is a really good rebound for Detroit going into Arizona, who took advantage of a Rams team that was just decimated with injuries and who lost Cooper Kupp midway through the game.
I'm actually on the same page. We've been butting heads a little bit through the first 2 weeks, and this is one where I'm seeing this the same way. I think this is more of a get right spot for Detroit. Like you mentioned, Arizona destroyed a injured and not that great Rams team. You obviously have the fact that they both played the Rams at one point this season, and Detroit just narrowly escaped with the victory while Arizona ran all over them. But I don't think they're the same situations. Like you have your week one opponent, like you have obviously that more time to really, plan for that opponent. So I think, and of course, considering that the Lions and Rams last game last year for the Rams was against the same Lions team. So, and there was a continuity that we spoke about between what the Lions do on offense and front office and coaching staffs, etc. So I agree. I think the Lions are I'd rather bet the Lions on the road to win outright here. I do have concerns about Jared Goff because he was a bad quarterback, and then now he became a really good quarterback, and then now he's showing the bad quarterback in him again because it does exist, and he can't be amazing forever. And while Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Trey McBride, that really is a crazy three-headed trio. But this is going back to my priors on Arizona that they can play in shootouts. They're just not going to be able to get enough stops, and I think Detroit could be able to get a stop. I'm with you on the Lions.
Yeah, now I think, after last week being such an underdog week, I think we're going to see the insanity of the NFL where people are going to get back on the underdogs again, try and catch the train. But when they zig, this zags.
Johnny, a public dog is just as much of a curse as, at chalky ass favorites. So
yeah,
you never want to be on the public dog side.
I think this is going to be a public week. I think a lot of the favorites are going to win. I think the public's going to do well this week. There's a lot of spots for that to happen. I think there's going to be some upsets, and I think there's going to be some underdogs covering, if not winning. But I definitely think we're going to see a lot more favorites come away with victories this week. So let's get started on this Thursday night game here. Tomorrow night, we have New England Patriots, who are surprisingly decent, traveling to the Meadowlands. Jets, 6.5-point favorites at home. Jets playing a lot of football lately. They were in Monday night last week. They played on Sunday. Now they're playing on Thursday. They're playing 3 games in the span of 10 days. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of football. Eric, do you think the Jets win? Do you think they cover? Or do you think New England's going to make this trip?
So no strong opinion here. Lean New England, but I do see a world where the Jets can win this game by margin. I know the general market is obviously higher on the Patriots than, they were literally the favorite to have the worst record in football heading into the season. And after beating the Bengals and playing well against Seattle, we've seen that sentiment completely change. But I was looking at some of the numbers, like New England on defense, like I think everybody is still harping so much so on the Patriots defense being good because they were good last year. They were good last year because of Bill Belichick. Of course, Mayo was around, but you're talking about one of the best defensive coaches ever. Yes, Gerard Mayo, now his defense is playing well, but you're still missing an overall talent, and you're talking about, again, a downgrade that no matter what has to exist. You're talking about, again, one of the best coaches ever to a rookie coach. Yes, he played for him and learned from him, but obviously you have to learn to get to that level. And this Patriots defense, 16th in EPA per play on defense, 25th in success rate, 17th in dropback EPA, 22nd in dropback success rate. Those are not good numbers. And you played, Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase, barely playing, with Roston, no T. Higgins. And then you played Seattle, which, who is a good quarterback, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, DK burned them. Like, Aaron Rodgers doesn't look great yet, but this Jets offense has had some positive drives, and they could get to the Patriots early, and the Patriots will have a lot of trouble getting back into this game. So I'm laying off, but I do think that if you with all these unders and all these ugly games and all these, we talked about the public winning in week 1 and the books winning week 2. That goes for not just spreads and totals. That also goes for player props and touchdowns and all those bets that everybody loves to take. I think this could be a sneaky over game where if you want to build an SGP, take some tail outcomes, because I think that these are 2 bad defenses and 1 good offense and another bad offense. So that's my take here.
Yeah. I think ultimately, the The short weeks have been interesting, right? Yeah, Buffalo as a field goal underdog, who, by the way, you were all over it. I completely missed on Miami. That was a whiff. You were on the Bills last weekend. I know you're not big on the Patriots. There's something about this team. Jerome Mayo's got them playing well. I think this is a big number. This is a very big number. And you've seen what the Patriots have done against Joe Burrow and Geno Smith. Seattle, Cincinnati, two good offenses with playmakers, and they've held them down. Meanwhile, the Jets, who went against Tennessee last weekend, they didn't really play that well. They barely escaped with a win. And honestly, Will Levis gave them extra possessions. He made another ridiculous play that resulted in a turnover in the red zone. Tried to do this weird option when he got in trouble, like a backwards lateral to Spears. I think the Jets win this game. I don't have anything official on the spread yet. I need a little bit more time to really dig into this game. I think 6.5 is a very big number.
I think it is, but I think the Patriots are going to be like a public dog. Like, obviously, there are sixes out there in the market, so that helps with the push, gets you a little bit more value with 6 and 6.5 key number. Listen, I made the case for the tail outcome for the Jets offense. I stand by what I say about the Patriots. Like, the Jets are not a good team. Their defense is horrible, which is why I think that if New England comes out hot, the Jets will be able to keep it up, and we could potentially see like a tail outcome of a high-scoring game here, because we're talking about two bad defenses. So nothing official for me. Just play a little devil's advocate with the market, I guess I should say, with a total at 38.5.
Yeah, I go on VSiN every Thursday night with my guy Joe Sorello, and we were talking about the Broncos Steelers game for this past Sunday, and he's like, a lot of people see these totals in the 30s and they want to bet the over because it's such a low scoring, but kind of thinking to go the other way. I think this is probably a bit of a lower scoring game as well. I think there's going to be, instead of going for getting the touchdowns, it tells for the field goals and, some clock chewing. And we've seen the Jets can be run on right now, and Ramondre Stevenson's kind of been the catalyst of this offense. Antonio Gibson had a great game on Sunday. So I think, there's going to be a lot of rushing attempts, and I think the under is definitely going to be in play here at 38.5, but I need a little bit more time here. So
I see where you're coming from. It could very well just be the case, and maybe I'm just overthinking this, but let's have some fun tomorrow. Let's see some points.
The same game parlay.
Yeah, might as well.
By the way, I'm sick. Like, if it wasn't bad enough the Sunday I cooked up this little Monday night parlay for fun. It wasn't anything crazy, right? It was only to win like $600. I mean, who's not going to take a little extra 600 on a Monday night? It was Atlanta plus 8.5, under 53.5, so two alternates. Kirk Cousins under 47.5 passing yards first quarter, which smashed. Saquon 15 rushing yards over first quarter, smashed. Bijan Robinson 25 receiving yards, hit on the nose, and Saquon Barkley touchdown. And Barkley down at the inch line. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Like, this is the kind of week I'm having. And then, of course, Barkley gets taken out so they can do this fucking ridiculous little tush push that they do. Oh, disgusting, dude. Come on. All right. Next game, we got the Bears at the Colts. This is trending towards a pick'em. Chicago has not looked good, Eric. The offensive line is a real problem. It's forcing Caleb Williams to taking a lot of hits, to not being able to have enough time to sit back and find his receivers. But when he has had it, he's making bad decisions. DJ Moore is not getting the type of involvement that I was hoping for when I drafted him in fantasy in a couple leagues. And it's not to his fault. Keenan Allen was hurt. Rome Odunze is a little bit limited. But this Bears defense right now is playing at a championship level. But Indianapolis, their defense can't stop the run. They can't get off the field. Josh Jacobs ran all over them, rampant. And I don't know where to go with this game. I think this might be, for me, trending towards another under.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. I was looking at the Colts potentially. I was low on Chicago into the year, as we've talked about, and I'm obviously still low on them. Their defense has played well. So I will give them credit there. It's not like this is a bad team, but they're clearly dysfunctional offensively. And that's what I predicted. That was where I saw there was going to be issues. Again, it's only been 2 weeks, but so far this Bears offense is just not capable of moving the football. And the Colts defense, like, it really is bad, but I think the Colts, I have the Colts like higher rated in my ratings, and I make this game closer to 2.5. So I like the Colts.
I think now with the loss of DeForest Buckner, that's just it might be too much to overcome. I don't know if Indianapolis is going to have the front seven to take advantage of how bad the Bears' offensive line has been. I mean, you look at Houston. Houston's got some dogs on that defense. You have a ridiculous defensive line with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, the reigning defensive rookie of the year. You have Mario Edwards on the interior, but the Colts don't have that. Now you lose your best defensive player in DeForest Buckner. I think this is going to be a heavy Chicago game script towards the run. I think the Bears right now are probably the right side, in my opinion. But I definitely think it's going to be an under. I think there's going to be a lot of running, a lot. I could see each team, give their running backs 30 carries plus. I think this is a huge DeAndre Swift game. I think this is a big Taylor game. Maybe a little Richardson rush attempts. Bears and the under is probably where I'd go right now. Not official yet, though.
Yeah, I definitely understand. Definitely see it.
This is another one. I mean, we have a lot of garbage games right now. And we're getting the Giants at Cleveland, a 6.5-point favorite. I don't think I could ever lay Cleveland 6.5, even against the Giants. They are right now not playing well at all. I don't know if David Njoku is going to be back. I thought he was going to have a multiple week absence. But, dude, let me say, like, both of these teams are not good. I think Jacksonville is, made Cleveland look a little bit better. I would side, obviously, with Cleveland winning this game, but laying 6.5 with them is just way too much.
I agree. And my devil's advocate for both of us is the way the Browns can win this game by margin is if their defensive line just absolutely blows up Daniel Jones. He's very susceptible to pressure, and they can force him to do what he does and turn over the football, whether it be fumble, bad throw on an interception, etc. If that's the case and they're really getting after the Giants, forcing these turnovers and having these short fields, then they can cover margin. But in a more traditional, game flow, especially considering how the Browns' offense is stagnant, that is asking for a lot. I 100% agree. So I'm not taking, but I definitely do lean Browns, and Browns are a teaser leg for me 100% this week. The Giants are abysmal, and I know their offense does have some upside. I'm not familiar with Jones's splits against man versus zone, so I'll pull those up while you're talking. But the Browns have the upfront dogs that can cause problems. So if they are able to again force these turnovers, get some sacks, just like give the Giants offensive life hell, then I think the Browns do have the chance of actually covering the spread.
I think honestly, I hate to say it, but I think it's another under 38.5. I don't know. I think the Giants defense is good enough to probably keep Cleveland under, I would say, 24 points, unless there's a couple defensive scores, which against Daniel Jones and this defense is possible. But, I would think Cleveland's going to be doing a lot of running. Njoku is unlikely to play. I think Jerome Ford, Deontay Foreman are going to get a lot of touches. And I think if you're the Giants, it's probably going to be hard to consistently move the ball on this defense via the pass. I think Daniel Jones might end up having to do a little bit more running with his legs. and I think it could kill a lot of clock. At least for the Giants side, offensively, I don't know if I see that many big, quick strike plays. You might get Malik Neighbors loose once or twice. Maybe Wan'Dale Robinson gets loose, but against a defense of this caliber, I think it's difficult. I could obviously see some short fields, could attribute to an over here, but if that doesn't happen, I think we're going to see a low-scoring game. I could see something along the lines of Cleveland 21, Giants 7, maybe 10. Maybe the Browns do cover, but I think that the total is probably right now the better play for me. I want to see what the injury report looks like a little bit later in the week.
Yeah, no, definitely feel you. Like I mentioned to you, and if I didn't mention on the show already, I haven't dove fully in. This is a game I did actually look at. I haven't dug fully into some of these spots, but from what I'm seeing so far, Browns, Giants, 6.5 points. Not going to be on my card, but I definitely am intrigued with the prospect of a Browns teaser leg.
Yeah. All right, now we're finally getting into a game here. Houston Texans at Minnesota Vikings. 2.5 points. That's all Houston is in Minnesota. 45.5 point total. This is the Stephon Diggs revenge game. I think Stephon Diggs is probably going to end up being one of the most bet plays to score a touchdown. I'm sure his yards, his catches is all going to be geared towards an over. But, dude, I think I'm gonna go with the herd here. I think I'm going to take Stephon Diggs to get in the end zone this week against Minnesota. What do you think?
I mean, listen, obviously he scored to start the season, but at this point, bro, if Stephon Diggs, all he is for Houston is running short possession routes at the 5-yard line and to, convert on third down in 2 through 6, that's awesome. What more can you ask for? So I definitely expect Houston to try to feed Stephon Diggs in the red zone, as he currently is arguably their best red zone option.
Especially with Joe Mixon's status up in question. Cam Akers was very unimpressive. He had a huge fumble that cost everybody that took Houston -6.5. Yep. It's uninspiring if Mixon misses this game. So I think Diggs is definitely going to be in position. In terms of the actual game, you think Minnesota's going to pull off another upset?
I wouldn't be absolutely shocked, but my stance on Houston. Like you said, Johnny, last week I was talking about how I wanted to bet Houston alternate lines on Monday night, and they would have cashed a couple of them if they didn't fumble that and, end on 6 and lose just the initial against the spread. I'm still in on the Texans, man. I like the Vikings. Kevin O'Connell is an absolutely great coach. Justin Jefferson said he is looking like he's going to play. That's obviously huge. And Brian Flores is a great defensive coordinator, and he's done such a good job He did such a good job last year. Done such a good job this year. And they're going to bring pressure on CJ Stroud. And like any quarterback, he is susceptible to pressure. Now the Texans have dogs in Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Stephon Diggs. And Stroud is certainly a great quarterback. I feel Spence in the comments saying he wants to take the 0.5 and take Min and at +3 because of course key number, and you'd feel good about that. But I like the Vikings a lot, but I'm sticking with my priors of the Texans being a Super Bowl contender, and I think that they win and cover.
Jordan Addison for Minnesota is also day-to-day, so
yes.
There's no definitive declaration that he's playing or not playing. Obviously, getting him back is huge. I'm going to go with Houston. I'm going to stick with the thought that this is going to be a big bounce back week for the favorites, and I just feel like Houston is the better team. These are the kind of games you have to win. If you're Houston and you want to prove to the world that you're a Super Bowl caliber team, these are the kind of games you have to win. A Minnesota team that just beat San Francisco last week, this is the kind of game that you have to win.
And also, the Vikings are the better coach team here. The Texans have the better roster, and of course, they have what should be the better quarterback. So, is that enough to overcome everything, including the Vikings home field advantage, one of the best in football? I think it is. I think it is. I think we're going to be mad at D'Amico Ryans at times but I think he's also going to help slow down Sam Darnold. I mean, I don't think that that's an impossible task as it seemed through 2 weeks so far this season.
Yeah, yeah. The concern I do have is I haven't been convinced by Houston's play. I really haven't. They didn't look great against Indianapolis. The Colts made a lot of self-inflicted errors. Anthony Richardson, while he made some highlight reel plays, there was a lot of inefficiencies where he missed Adonai Mitchell twice for a touchdown. And obviously against the Bears, they couldn't put the Bears away. CJ Stroud has looked solid. He's been a game manager, which is fine, but the rest of the offense has been a little lackluster outside of Nico Collins. That's the one concern I have. But ultimately, Houston fundamentally has played solid. I'm gonna ride with Houston here. I want to see what this line movement looks like, but I feel like there's going to be some action on Houston throughout the week. So, if we can get under the field goal, I feel good about it. To be honest, bro, I wouldn't even lay the 2.5, Eric. I'd probably just take them outright on the money line because you're getting 134 minus 134 on Houston for the money line, for the 2.5, you're laying 2.5 and you're paying 105 for it. So I'd rather save the 29 cents and not have to lay 2.5 points.
No, I feel, but at MGM right now, I'm seeing a 1.5 minus 110 each way. So definitely shop around because it looks like I guess I must have missed it. Look at the odds screen right now, but yeah, I'm seeing a 1.5 pop up on illegal, a bunch of 2s everywhere, circus at 1.5. So Spence, looks like you're not going to be able to get a buy a point here if the market's going that way. You're on the right spot there.
Yeah, Stephon Diggs. Anytime, a little parlay, baby. Little Stephon Diggs, anytime tutty in the plus money with Houston Texans money line. Don't hate it. Don't hate it. Your Honor, no objections. Eric, the next game here, this is an interesting one. So I want to talk about a little strategy that I'm going to keep my eye on for the rest of the season. I'll let you kick this one off, though. Philadelphia at New Orleans. 2.5 point favorite is the Saints. Total sitting just under 50. Did the Saints continue their high-flying offense under Clint Kubiak, or does Philly get right?
So this is easily one of the most intriguing games on the board for the obvious football reasons, but also for those earth-shattering priors. Nobody on the new people were expecting the Saints team to be horrible. Now they're literally through 2 weeks the best offensive football. Nobody expected the Saints team to be this good on offense in this new system with Clint Kubiak going. They've so far overexceeded expectations that obviously regression is what you'd expect to come next and them to fall back down to earth. And while that is inevitable, regardless of if they're playing well or if they're playing terribly, this is real. The things that they're doing on offense, it's not just they are catching a 50-50 ball that's now becoming, a touchdown where there are more luck-driven plays. Of course, luck is a huge factor, but this philosophy on offense is great. The scheming has been great. They have such talent in Kamara, Olave, and Shaheed. Those are good athletes. Those are good football players. And then Derek Carr, of course, we've seen him be able to throw the ball, and it's no pressure. The offensive line is playing well above its weight class. This team is legit and worth taking seriously. And coming into the season, with Dennis Allen as the DC, you were never expecting this defense to be bad. He's a great defensive coordinator. They have good players. This is always going to be, at worst, a little bit below league average, but at best, kind of what they've done against Carolina, which, again, doesn't matter, in New Orleans, Dallas. But so that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is the Philadelphia Eagles. They, obviously lost on Monday, but were about to win that football game, but, didn't hold up. And yeah, the Saints on paper have a great matchup to just throw the ball over this Eagles secondary and defense that's just bad right now, very, very bad. But are we really going to say that the Eagles, a team that I have to win the most games in the NFL this season, is now a worse team than the Saints team that coming into the season I had as like my 20th rated team that even after upgrading literally 50% to 10 is now the favorite. I know it's at home. I know no AJ Brown, but that's where I am on this game. Like, yeah, I do see a world where the Saints continue to roll, but I also see a world where hold the phone. Like the Saints are really good. The Eagles are also a Super Bowl contender, really good team, despite the collapse on Monday night and the lackluster Friday night game. That's where I'm playing both sides of the coin here, Johnny. I don't know if you're something you really want to lock in. I love Olave and Shaheed receiving yards and receptions for this game. Those are props I'd look at. But in terms of a side, I see both sides 100%, and I lean toward my priors of the Eagles being as good as I think they am, and would hope this gets to 3 where I could take a 3. But I would gun to head on Eagles, but I do see the argument for the Saints being real, and I think they are real, but I think that Philly is real too.
I think there's just something so hilarious going on right now. Let's give New Orleans credit. I mean, they kicked the shit out of Carolina. I mean, dude, it's I'm not okay. You won convincingly. You did what you're supposed to do. Fine. The Dallas win is very impressive, but I think me and you spent an extensive amount of time this summer talking about how we both don't like Dallas. We didn't think their defense was that good, especially in the secondary. Deron Bland was going to miss some time. Diggs is coming off a torn ACL. Really, they don't have a great front seven outside of Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yeah,
there's a lot of holes on this defense. Their offense is very, very top heavy with CeeDee Lamb. And, Brandon Cooks is getting up there. Brandon Cooks is really not even a reliable 2 at this point in his career. Brandon Cooks is a strong 3. The running game was going to be a huge question mark. Zeke, Dalvin Cook, Rico Dowdle was like a big fantasy sleeper. And obviously when Zeke comes back and Dalvin Cook, that's kind of puts a thorn in the side. Jake Ferguson battling an injury. I think this win is much bigger on paper. And I don't want to take anything away from New Orleans. I don't, because you're coming in back-to-back 40 beans. I don't care who you're playing in the NFL. That is impressive. Yes. But like you, I am not rushing in to say, wow, the Saints are for real. Derek Carr's MVP odds are 33-1. Come on. Like, let's relax here. This is what I can't stand about the NFL and its betting markets and people just overreact and they're trying to get in. And my a good friend of the show, Jared Smith, who does some work over with VSiN, he's like, oh, for fun, I bet him at 300-1. I think maybe after the Monday night game or the week 1 game. I'm sorry, and yeah, it's fun. Like Derek Carr winning an MVP. That's basically saying the Saints are going to win 13 or 14 games, be the 1 or the 2 seed in the NFC.
Yep, that's true. That's a very fair assessment of the market. Yeah.
So my thing is this: New Orleans has found a groove. Right? Can they be a playoff team? Absolutely. The NFC is weak. New Orleans can definitely make the playoffs, but the issue now becomes we're looking at New Orleans as if they're what they were 10, 12 years ago with Sean Payton and Drew Brees. That's not who they are. I don't care how well their offense keeps doing. They're just not that. Eventually, they're going to have to come back down to earth. But now they got lucky again. AJ Brown is probably going to miss this game. Marshawn Lattimore is up in the air for New Orleans, and obviously that matters. But I think right now I'm on the side of New Orleans to win this game, and I'll tell you why. AJ Brown, we saw how Philly's passing offense was just in shambles without him. And Atlanta's got a good secondary. That was always going to be the strength of their defense. AJ Terrell, Jesse Bates, huge impact. Justin Simmons, fine. But I want to test a new theory, Eric. We saw San Francisco come out flat last week after playing on Monday night. I want to test the theory that teams that play on Monday night have to turn around and play the next Sunday fall flat. So I despite how bad Philly lost, a game that they should not have lost, but they let Atlanta hang around all day. I want to go see if this theory is going to work throughout the season. Teams that play on Monday night, how do they do the following week on Sunday? That's why I think I'm going to take New Orleans, especially with no A.J. Brown. At home, they got confidence. Philadelphia didn't even really play that well against Green Bay.
It didn't.
It's hard to quantify that because that game is in Brazil, halfway around the world, on the worst field you can ever imagine, a field that is meant for soccer players, not football. So, I think New Orleans right now for me is probably the side. I would honestly probably take the money line, not even lay the 3. The money line, at least on FanDuel, is 152. I just don't know if I like Philadelphia right now in this spot on a short week on the road without their best offensive player, skill player.
No, and I see it, and that's why I had nothing. I'm not betting aside in this one. Saints could definitely just torch this lackluster Philly D, and like that could be that, and we can be talking about later this week or next week after we see the Saints go off and how now is the time for them to regress because it has to happen. So yeah, I see it. Yeah. I 100% see it.
I could see it too. And listen, this is not an official play, but right now this is where I'm leaning. I need to look it over a little bit more. I want to see what the injury report status is, and I think some of these things the Saints are doing right now can match up well against this Philly defense for sure. Okay. Tampa Bay hosting Denver, 6.5 points, low total at 39.5. Eric, Tampa all the way. I think Tampa's going to blow them out.
Yeah, I was wrong on Tampa to start the year. They're obviously 2-0. Their offense is a well-oiled machine. The Broncos are not going to be able to get pressure. They're not going to be able to lock down the duo of Evans and Godwin. Like we've been on Godwin all season, Johnny, which has paid dividends because he's been the man to start the year for Tampa. I like another Godwin exceptionally played game, and I love the Buccaneers. I do expect the Buccaneers to have their way with the Broncos. I have no interest in betting Denver. Obviously, I bet numbers, not teams, so there will be points where I'm going to be betting on the Denvers and Carolinas of the world. Just not for me this week. Definitely a heavy lean toward Tampa Bay.
I also want to take a look at Tampa's team total when it comes out. I don't know if it's out. I haven't seen anything in terms of their totals.
Buccaneers team total is 23.5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking the over on that. I think I think Tampa's live to score 30 in this game at least.
I think they are as well.
Listen, they still have a good defense, Denver. Like, let's not get it twisted. Their defense still is solid. They still have Patrick Surtain. Chances are, I would imagine Patrick Surtain is going to see a little bit more of Mike Evans, which could lead the way with Godwin. But at the end of the day, if Bo Nix continues to play the way he is,
he's awful.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that this is probably going to be one of the most confident plays I have of the week is Tampa Bay -6.5. I think this could be a multi-unit play.
Teaser situation, obviously, 100% for
me. All right, LA Chargers at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look who's good. The Steelers can't score touchdowns, but they win ball games. I got to be honest, dude. I don't really have a play in this one, but LA probably staying on the East Coast. So the travel, I mean, they're away from home. I don't think it's going to make too much of a factor. I honestly think the Steelers can win this game. I probably would lean Pittsburgh.
Oh, I lean Pittsburgh heavily. It's definitely on my radar to play. Look at like Los Angeles is like the Saints on defense, except you're obviously graded for who they played. They played a Raiders team where they actually should have lost that football game, and then they played. Bryce Young was one of the worst quarterbacks we've seen in recent history. And you're talking about a team that's first in EPA per play on defense, first in dropback EPA, first in success rate, first in rush EPA. Like, at least for the Saints, right? Like you see the process, and while they're going to regress because you have to regress, like they have this better foundation of going about it. Like the Chargers just beat two bad teams. And Pittsburgh, again, like we're talking about a Justin Fields, Arthur Smith offense that has like no float with, like 23rd in EPA per play, 29th in success rate, 29th of running the ball, and we're talking about games against Atlanta and Denver, like no good defense there. It's the defense that's been the story for Pittsburgh, and the pressure that they've been getting has been a huge factor for this team also. But this Chargers offensive line, man, it really is incredible. It really is a great unit, and if you're keeping Justin Herbert, despite the lack of weapons, you keep a quarterback with that skill set and give him that time, that space to move and utilize the pocket, you can move the football because you can't cover forever. But with that being said, based on our power ratings, my power ratings, I have the Steelers as more closer to, again, a 2.5 point favorite here with home field, of course, and just I have Pittsburgh still rated higher than LA, and I think we're gonna have an ugly game, but I think we're gonna be sitting here with the Pittsburgh Steelers team that's 3-0, and we're gonna be like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I think we very well might be. Steelers getting a pretty easy schedule to start the year. You got to get the wins where you can. Eric, what do we have next? You should know this. What do we have?
We have Royal Mint in the making.
And what is the Royal Mint?
When you have a spread 5.5, that's right at close. Johnny's noticed over time, he's been passed down the secrets that those teams that are closing at 5.5, 5 points, they're winning outright, those underdogs.
Yeah,
in that number zone.
The road dog getting exactly 5 or 5.5 points at close. Carolina Panthers for me, no question. Panthers, and ordinarily, so if this was a Bryce Young spot, this would be one of the few times I wouldn't take this number. But now Andy Dalton, definitely. Now this offense has a little bit of juice. You got some pass catchers in Deontay Johnson, who's solid. You got Xavier Legette. Maybe he gets going. You have Adam Thielen, Chuba Hubbard. You got a couple guys. And the defense, it's not good. Okay, let's be honest. The Panthers defense, especially without Brian Burns, is not good. But still have a couple guys in the secondary. J.C. Horn. I think this is a spot where I'm going to take Carolina. I think everybody's out on Carolina. I think people are buying Vegas because they won a game they shouldn't have won in Baltimore. I think the Panthers are going to cover this game. I think Andy Dalton's going to have a solid performance. He's a veteran quarterback who's been in this system before. I think this is a Carolina Panther spot. Royal Mint has convinced me of it.
Yeah, and I understand. I'm not touching it. We saw this number move after the Bryce Young benching news. So obviously the market has told us what they think and what we at this point know about Bryce Young. But this reminds me of the spot last year where, Bryce Young sat for it was an injury, but Bryce Young was hurt. Andy Dalton played in Seattle. I actually got Seattle that game at like +7, and it closed, I think, around a Royal Mint realistically.
It was a Royal Mint spot.
And then Carolina ended up losing and not covering even the spread. I got like 2 points of CLV on.
It was close though. It was close. That was down. That game was down to the. That game was down. They didn't cover, I don't believe, but that game was down to the wire. They just missed.
No, I think in like the fourth quarter they like let up some garbage time bullshit that like when they were driving. I don't remember exactly. I definitely remember they didn't cover because I remember being so pissed about that. Digression aside, this, like you said, this Panthers defense is horrible. With that being said, their offensive line is a lot better than it was last year, and their weapon room is improved. Like they don't have bad, like Johnson's still a good wide receiver, so Andy Dalton should be able to move the football. But this Raiders defensive line really is good, though. Again, the Panthers OL has been good so far, and I don't think that they're going to really. The Panthers are going to strike fear in the heart of Gardner Minshew. Now that Gardner Minshew's not a quarterback, I want to lay points with, especially this kind of margin. So it's ending up being a no play, sit on the sideline for me. But you have to upgrade Carolina with Dalton. It's just more of his Dalton. Like Bryce Young was 32 of 32, like no questions asked. The question then becomes, is Dalton going to be like 28 or 29, which is still going to be a massive leap from Bryce Young? Or he's going to be like the 22nd, 23rd, 21st rated quarterback in terms of like EPA and like actually looks good? Then yeah, the Carolina Panthers are definitely covering this 5.5 point spread and are escaping the basement of the NFL. But we shall find out, Johnny.
Yeah. Green Bay, Tennessee, Jordan Love practice, surprisingly. So obviously, with the Jordan Love pending news, that game is completely off the board. No spread, no total. Just not really going to talk about it because we don't know if Love's playing, and that is going to make a huge difference. So just wanted to throw that out there. All right, next game, trending towards the Royal Mint spot itself, is Miami at Seattle. This is probably, and we were talking about this last week with Seattle and New England. I think this might be the longest flight on the continental United States. Seattle to Miami. Right? This is probably the longest flight you can take in the U.S. continental.
It's definitely Googleable, and like just thinking of basic geography. Honestly, I don't know how certain wind factors and et cetera when you're traveling from point A to point B, but it could certainly be.
Let's see, continental. See, but it says Boston to Honolulu, but Honolulu is obviously, so that's
we're talking on the mainland.
Yeah, so we're on talking about mainland, but in any case, Miami obviously loses Tua, so that is a huge blow to everything. I haven't heard, is Skylar Thompson starting this game? Are they really going to throw him out there? They signed Snoop Huntley, which obviously is not a ringing endorsement, but is it going to be Skylar Thompson?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, he's probably expected to start. I mean, we obviously have seen Skylar Thompson play for this Miami team. We saw him play in a playoff game against the Bills 2 years back. So call me crazy, but I don't downgrade Miami's offense ridiculously with Skylar Thompson under center, because you still obviously have Tyreek Hill and Devon Achane. But with that being said, Miami's defense is what is concerning me and what's concerned me. And we saw it on Thursday. The Bills stampeded them. The Seahawks offense is not the Bills offense, of course, but I think that this line makes sense to me. In my ratings, I actually show value on Miami, even with Skylar Thompson. But I'm not touching a side here, Johnny. I don't know about you.
I'm gonna wait till later in the week, see if we get a Royal Mint spot. If we get the 5.5 or even the 5, I might dabble on Miami. Even gross. It's just because the thing is, bro, even on games I don't agree with, this is like why. This is one of the reasons why. Like, first of all, we've had so much success on this number throughout the years, and even it hits most of the time. But even when it doesn't hit, the times where it does not hit, most of those times, it's right there. Something happened late, but they're still in the game. I've seen a lot of those where I've taken a Royal Mint spot. It doesn't end up coming home, but it was right there. Some bullshit happened, a penalty or a garbage time score, something along those lines. Very rarely is there a Royal Mint spot and that underdog has had no chance of covering the game. I can only remember on a very small handful of times that happened. So, I play that number. That is one of the few times I will always play a number.
That number's not teams.
What?
That number's not teams.
Yeah. I mean, the number is the number. And that one's my favorite. Okay, game of the week time. Baltimore at Dallas. We're trending towards a pick 'em here. Ravens are a small favorite. I can't make a decision on this game because there's a lot of injuries up there. Kyle Hamilton was out of practice. CeeDee Lamb didn't practice. I think there's too much up in the air right now for me to make a convincing argument one way or another. Lamb is their best player, and Kyle Hamilton's probably their best defensive player. So I feel like right now it's probably just like a wait and see what happens later in the week with the injury report.
Yeah, I lean Baltimore. This is actually not a game that I got to dive fully into, but I definitely will be, prior to making any wagers on anything. But I definitely think I lean toward Baltimore here.
What I will be looking at, absolutely, is a Derrick Henry anytime touchdown prop minus 130. Derrick Henry 130 touchdown. I'd probably look at Henry. It scored twice I like Lamar plus 160 to score. I think there's a couple guys on the Ravens that I'm definitely going to be looking at to score, because one thing we do know is Baltimore's offense with the speed is definitely going to pose a problem for this Cowboys defense that just got gashed. Granted, though, I would probably think that they're going to draw some sort of – Dallas, that is going to draw some sort of plan for Parsons to probably try and spy Lamar, because Micah Parsons is one of the few, maybe the only defensive player in the league that you can make a real case that he's the best athlete on the field, and that includes against Lamar. If Lamar's a better athlete than Micah Parsons, I don't think it's by much. So I think, maybe we could see something along those lines. But, other than the touchdowns, I think side total, money line, all that, I not until I see the status of CeeDee Lamb. That's probably more important to me than anything else on this injury report. Hamilton is important, but, Lamb is obviously going to make or break Dallas. If Lamb was to miss this game, I think that's probably going to end up being worth a few points to the line.
Definitely.
San Francisco at LA. Both teams lost. LA got dismantled, but also lost their star receiver, Cooper Kupp. A couple linemen also hurt. San Francisco lost Deebo Samuel. It's a real mess right now. Niners were 7.5, came down to 7. There's no way I can bet the Rams. There's just no way. I would bet San Francisco any day of the week laying 7. And forget the injuries. San Francisco, and I know I said this about the Rams Cardinals, but we're playing something that consistently happens. Every now and then you're going to get something that bucks the trend, but the Niners have owned the Rams. Kyle Shanahan has little broed Sean McVay since 2017 when they both took over their respective teams. I think the Niners are going to win and cover in this game.
Yeah, Niners are definitely a look at a teaser spot. No confidence in the Rams' ability to move the football without Kupp and Nakua. I mean, that's always been the issue for Los Angeles, has been depth. It's been the issue the last 3 years, realistically, when they kind of went all in for that chip. After that, they've been just really good up at their top of their roster, and the middle and end of their roster has just really suffered. And now, obviously, Stafford's great, and McVay is great at making this offensive line or masking its injuries. But against this pass rush, and I'm not going to say against this defense, because it's not like the Niners defense is great. We saw what Donald did to them last week. I'm not surprised that they're not that great, but they're still better than league average defense. And without, two guys who are your two of your 3 best players, and then the rest of the guys who are not filling in being virtually replacement level players in terms of the other NFL talent, but they're not the same type of weaponry. I think it's Niners or nothing here.
Yeah. Kansas City at Atlanta. This line was Kansas City minus 4.5. It's come down a point. People are buying the Falcons. I'm not. I think Kansas City at 3.5 is going to smack Atlanta, put them back in their place. Let's give Atlanta credit. They hung tough. Kirk Cousins looked good. I think Atlanta's going to be able to score and put up some points on the board, but ultimately, I think now what we're going to see is Patrick Mahomes get unleashed against Atlanta. No Isaiah Pacheco means we're probably going to see a lot more pass attempts. The Chiefs, really probably the last half season they've played, including the playoffs, they've really transitioned to a balanced offense, which historically was never really happening with Kansas City. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to get back to vintage Mahomes and let the ball fly. I don't think Atlanta's defense is going to be good enough to slow down the Chiefs' offense. I think this is a typical 3.5 spot, even on the road. I like the Chiefs here.
Well, the reason why the Chiefs started to run the football is because their passing game stunk at times last year. They had minimal weapons, but before Rice came on, Kelsey was old. The rest of their receiver core was not good. And I think the one thing we can't ignore, and the one reason to be bearish on the Chiefs at certain points during this regular season, is their offensive line. Their left tackle is horrible. Their offensive line is borderline very not good. And yes, you have the great equalizer in Mahomes, and you do have upgraded weaponry, but that's why the Chiefs' philosophy was more shifted toward running the football. Isaiah Pacheco is not in that weapon tier of running backs like we're a la Saquon Barkley or McCaffrey. He's close. So his loss will be missed. Make no mistake about that. But I think it's tough for the Mahomes to be unleashed like he is obviously capable of and like you're expecting, just because this offensive line really is so bad. It's not like the Falcons have dogs up front, which makes this like a very concerning situation here. I do think the Chiefs should win and cover this game, but just like more like long-term thinking and how they're going to have to readjust their offensive game plan without Pacheco. I think that the Chiefs are concerned about their offensive line. Like I could be sitting here concerned about it looking at the numbers. I know they know much better than I do what's going on there. So just a little food for thought for backing the Chiefs in the near future without Pacheco is the offensive line is at the point where it's concerningly bad, even with the Reed Mahomes, tandem.
Yeah. You're still laying it with Kansas City?
There's nothing official here for me at this point, but I think the Falcons suck, so I definitely lean toward Kansas City.
Yeah. Okay, Jacksonville, Buffalo, again, closing the Royal Mint here. 4.5. We're a point away. I probably won't make anything official for a little while. I want to see what's going on with Evan Ingram. That's a big loss. Buffalo did well against a bad Miami defense. Like, let's call it what it is. Miami's defense is putrid. It was supposed to be a lot better because the secondary, they have some guys. The front seven is dealing with a ton of injuries. Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, it loss of Christian Wilkins, Van Ginkel's gone. It was a big change for Miami. So I just don't think Buffalo's that good. I really don't. They got lucky to beat the Cardinals. If Kyler Murray wasn't so short and such an absolute moron, he would have saw Marvin Harrison running wide open. Buffalo probably loses that game against Arizona. Tua Tagovailoa is next to hot garbage. He had one good season as a Dolphin. I don't love Jacksonville. I don't think they're anything special. But again, if we're getting a Royal Mint spot here, I think I'd probably take Jacksonville here. I'm going to be looking heavy into some Josh Allen anytime touchdown props. Mm-hmm. Right now, it's a no play for me.
I disagree with you on Buffalo. I think Buffalo is great, like really great, like top 5 great. And I understand your argument in terms of, you beat a Cardinals defense that's horrible, and then you beat up on a bad Miami defense. Like, yeah, I think you should definitely put some salt or take everything with a grain of salt. But with that being said, based on my numbers, based on what I'm seeing, and based on what I've watched, this Buffalo Bills team is the same well-oiled machine that we've come to expect from Josh Allen, second best quarterback in football. He's obviously a tier below Mahomes, but is it still in a tier where as long as he is on the field and healthy and has the football getting snapped to him, your team has a chance every single week to win that game. And the Jaguars are a team that I'm probably exactly around market on. Like, I think they're good. I don't think that they're this bad 0-2 team like their record shows. I know all the Trevor Lawrence hates coming back out. I'm not on that punching the table where Lawrence sucks train or anything like that. He's still a good quarterback despite their lack of success in the past, dating back to last season, 7-8 games. But I nothing for a play for me at the current market, or just considering I haven't dove into this game fully, but I am bullish on the Bills. I am still bullish on the Jaguars, so I think the spread does make sense because the Jaguars are not a bad football team. This Bills defense is susceptible, but this to getting beat. But this Jaguars defense is bad, and especially Deshaun Campbell's on IR. Darnell Savage might miss this game. Those are literally 2 of their best defensive players on an already bad secondary. Like, Josh Allen could have his way with this Jaguars team, like we saw Deshaun Watson look like the worst quarterback against Dallas, and then a middle of the pack quarterback. Like, you're going with Josh Allen against this Jaguars defense, he could destroy them.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they play the game. I mean, I think Buffalo Bills are okay. I don't think they're great. I think their super window closed. I think Josh Allen is a great playmaker. What?
I couldn't disagree more.
Yeah, well, that's why we do it. I mean, their teams were a lot better the last 4 years, and I mean, they couldn't win. I don't know. I just Jacksonville has just been such a disappointment. They got lucky to beat the Chargers. If the Chargers weren't the Chargers, Jags don't win that playoff game. I mean, that was the only reason why people are somewhat high on them. And I feel like me, along with a lot of other people, are waiting for the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence hasn't done anything. Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be, I remember 2018, 2019, 2020, all we heard was Lawrence is the second coming. He's the biggest, most notable number one pick since Andrew Luck. He's the next Luck, this, that. Like, he hasn't shown it. First year, fine. Urban Meyer, that was a disaster. I'll give him a pass for that. But what have we seen from Trevor Lawrence lately to even make this distinction that he is a legitimate franchise quarterback that's lived up to the billing? Like, obviously, the measurables are there, and you're always going to have a place for a guy that's 6'6", has a good arm, and can run the way he can. But, that's the one issue, that I really have. And obviously, the secondary is not good. But nevertheless, I think I need a little bit more time on this game here.
Definitely understood.
Okay. We touched on this Commanders-Bengals game briefly. Through it one more time.
Yeah, I went through the high level, but I could dive into like the full handicap. I'm on the over. Washington, to me, despite the fact, the first game went over. Last week we saw some market steam for the over. We know the Giants lost their field goal kicker. Washington scored no touchdowns. But I still think this is a dead over football team. This Commanders offense, like we've seen it so far, like everyone was kind of getting on Cliff Kingsbury in week one because he does run his offense. Like his offense is not as imaginative. It does focus more on the running game. It is going to lead to more, Brian Robinson carries, Jalen Daniels scrambles, passes at or around or behind the line of scrimmage for some yak. And this Bengals team, like this defense is bad. Like their teams can run the ball down their throat. And Washington through 2 weeks against, albeit a horrible run defense in New York, but a solid run defense in Tampa Bay. Like this Commanders team is going to be able to move the football on this Bengals team. And I know they only kicked field goals last week. They went 7 for 7 to end up winning that game. And their red zone numbers have been bad to start the year. But red zone efficiency and scoring is another statistic that is subject to regression. And Washington doing horribly in the red zone to start the year. Those field goals are going to eventually turn into some touchdowns. And against this weak Bengals front, Jaden Daniels and Brian Robinson should be able to have days. And the secondary is nothing to write home about either. And you have, McLaurin, De'Ami Brown, and Olamide Zaccheaus. Like they're not crazy names of amazing receivers, but they are good enough to where Jaden Daniels' skill set has shown that he's accurate. He is threw the ball deeper down the field last start. And I think Washington going to put up points. And then Cincy against his Commanders defense really needs some introduction. The T. Higgins plays, of course, too. Like Washington has nobody that can even sniff the jockstrap of Jamar Chase, let alone even T. Higgins. And we saw Joe Burrow and the squad shake off the slow start rust in week one. They look really great and probably should have won that game in Arrowhead in week two. And that's against one of the best defenses in football. Now you're playing the actual worst. So spread being 7.5, of course, obviously that's leaning toward the Bengals winning this football game by more than a touchdown, meaning that they're definitely going to score the football. And I definitely see a world where the Commanders score the football as well, pushing this game over this total.
I'm definitely looking at Jaden Daniels anytime touchdown. I mean, that's just going to be a play every week. It's not going to hit every week, and especially you're getting right now. You're getting plus 145 on him at FanDuel.
Every week,
that's way too big. Jamar Chase is in the plus money to score a touchdown, especially if Higgins is back. I mean, the Commanders, we talked about this in week one. The Commanders allowed the most touchdowns to wide receivers last year, 29. Evans puts up 2 week one. I think Chase is going to score. I think if you're looking a little bit, I think Chase is going to have a breakout game here. I think it's going to be a big Jamar Chase game. Statement for Cincinnati to kind of get back right, do what they do. Slow starts behind them. They look good last week for the most part. Now they're going to start moving towards what we know from them. I think Mike Gesicki at plus 230. Anytime touchdown is something I'm looking at as well. They line Gesicki up as a wide receiver. His position's tight end, but they don't play him as a tight end. So definitely think there's some opportunities to cash in the touchdown market as well. Personally, I'm not giving out my teaser this week, And the reason why is because you need to subscribe to my Dub Club. Use the promo code first month free to get 1 month free when signing up for an annual subscription. That's good till the end of September. Last day, September 30th. Check it out at JohnnyVTV on Dub Club. Subscribe for all my picks, NFL, MLB, college baseball, the whole deal. Eric, tell everybody where they can find you.
Find me on Twitter at Slime Action. If you want all of my picks and plays, head over to the Parlay Science Discord. It's the best. We run everything. We have a bunch of amazing cappers that are posting plays every single day, every single sport. So you can find everything that I play in Parlay Science, and of course have freebies all the time on Twitter. So be sure to follow me at Slime Action on Twitter.
Eric, it's always a pleasure. Great night of looking for the football. Any plays that we have, and we thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Very strong show. I felt like we got some good handicaps, and for some other games that were a little on the fence, maybe some injury reports. Stay tuned. We're going to put out some good information throughout the rest of the week.
Yes, sir.
Eric, thank you very much. Everybody, hope you enjoyed the show. Best of luck this week, and we'll see you next week.